Hey guys, what's up? Bisectatron here from OneHive Gazette, here with my next base destruction video, and we will get into the action in just a moment, but first I have to talk about the last video I uploaded, and as soon as I uploaded it, I found out that Supercell had just banned a bunch of people for using third-party software, and it was a permanent ban this time, so pretty serious stuff, and in that video, I had talked about a big group of people leaving Genesis to go back to Reddit Legacy for the most part. Not all of them, but most of them. And a lot of people thought that was kind of a cover-up for them really being modders and them using third-party software and getting banned. So that was kind of our cover-up to hide the real truth. And maybe I'm kind of a sucker for addressing this, but because I know some people are just giving Genesis a hard time just to kind of troll or whatever. But for people who are legitimately curious or suspicious as to what happened, basically, a few things. First of all, the people that left on Sunday after the arranged war. Now, I didn't upload the video talking about them leaving and the recruitment details for Genesis. I didn't upload that video until today, so this is 3 days later. But because of the timing of the video, people kind of assumed that's when they left. But in reality, they had left a few days earlier before the bans even came out. And second of all, if you go to Reddit Legacy, you can see probably 9 out of 10 of the Genesis members who left, I think, went to Reddit Legacy. So you can see that they're still in a clan, donating, doing stuff that would require you to have access to your account to do. So I wanted to talk about that real quick. Sorry if I'm kind of wasting time here, because I don't think anyone was legitimately, for the most part, that suspicious, but people do say things in the comments, and I felt kind of it was my job to address this when I can in a video. So anyway, besides that, let's get into the base destruction video for today. And you guys probably are tired of seeing this base on the channel, but I'm going to do it one last time just so you guys who see this base in war a bunch, because I know it's so popular, just so you guys are crystal clear on how to 3-star it, because we've seen fails on it, we've seen success, but in this video, let's talk about everything that kind of goes into taking out this base. Taking a look at it, you can use many strategies on it, but Valks are the go-to, and really, why would you use any other strategy? Because Valks are by far the most reliable for this base. You can't really use bowlers because the bowler is probably the most difficult troop to predict as far as pathing goes in the game, the most difficult troop to funnel. So with the base this wide open, there's so many possibilities of where your bowlers could go besides the core. So it doesn't seem quite worth it to take the risk, I guess is what I'm saying. And also for miners, there's just, the buildings are so tight together. Miners actually aren't that effective because there's so much HP around the core that the defenses are pretty well protected. So Valks are going to be your go-to. The buildings are touching. As long as you can get them into the core, you have a good shot at the 3-star. So there's two things that you need to do when attacking this base with Valks. The first thing is create a funnel to get your Valks into the core of the base. And enough Valks to actually take out the core. Sometimes they get in there, but they die off. But enough Valks and the right spell placement to get in there, get the core taken out with your Valks. The second thing you need is a queen with her healers still on her that can survive to the end of the attack. So you want to do a short queen, some kind of queen walk or queen charge or something that doesn't require a lot of spells, but it will get in there. And for example, if you're attacking the base from this side with your Valks coming in like that, you want to probably enter your queen either in that compartment or that compartment. Let her take out some of these buildings to create a funnel, and then on the other side you can, let's say your queen comes in on this side, other side bring something else to take out the funnel here. So break the funnel on each side, then send your Valks right up the middle or wherever you're coming from and get them into the core. But you want the queen to survive long enough to the point where after she does her job here, she'll just walk to some place in the base and continue taking out defenses, because once the core goes down, the defenses are so spread out, especially the point defense, if you just look at it, that you don't have too much of a, you're not going to have too much of a problem as long as you have a few Valks left up and your queen and most of her healers, because she is very effective in the late end game attack. She can take out quite a few buildings and go for a long time as long as she doesn't take too much damage. So we're going to take a look at a bunch of attacks on this base. It actually ate up 4 attacks, all by our Town Hall 10s and 11s, if you can believe that. So we're not quite at the level where we're taking out the space consistently, but hopefully you guys can be after watching this video. So we'll take a look at all 4 of those attacks at the same time. I know in some base destruction videos, I kind of go back and forth between this screen and notifications, between this screen and the actual attacks, but today we're just going to look at each attack as it happens, because honestly there's not a whole lot of planning I need to talk about, because they're just different ways to take on the base, but they're all going for the same objective, which is to get stuff funneled into the core, get it taken out, and then have something left over for the end game to take out the rest of the shell of the base. So let's go ahead and get into the first attack and see what the first attacker was trying to do to this base. So Mr. Alec was the first attacker, and you can see here he has 5 healers cooked up along with a Valk army. So he's doing kind of what I usually do on this base too when you guys watch my live attacks, because I've done so many live attacks on this base, is he's coming in here with the queen to break the funnel. You can see Baby Dragon and balloons in the CC, and I probably should have mentioned that the Teslas are all in the core, but I think those of you guys who are familiar with this base already know that. So anyway, the CC troops come out, the queen engages those, the poisons are going to slow down the balloons quite a bit. She is taking damage from 2-point defense plus the wizard tower for what it's worth. Right there, the next few point defense lock on, gets that ability just in time. That was like super close. Drops the rage too, which is definitely needed because the ability wears off pretty quickly, and his queen's going to be up for a little while longer. You can see the king going in on the other side with the wall breakers, has the Valks to open that part of the base up, and the only problem here is that there's nothing to let the Valks and the king into that next layer of the base. You can see that the giants go down. I think they're supposed to go in with the Valks, but everything was just too late here, and the queen goes down because she had, I think, already beat through one of those walls, or yeah, she already went through one of the walls. So part of the problem with this attack is you have to move quickly, and you have to be able to do multiple things at once, because he wasted way too much time, so both sides of the funnel went down. Now the funnel was created for the most part, but besides that, he only has the Valks and the giants really left up. That freeze was pretty late, so the Valks are getting targeted by the Inferno for most of the time they're in the core, but right there, finally the Inferno's frozen up. That being said, he's lost a lot of Valks because the spell placement wasn't the best, and he doesn't have his queen, which is almost a deal breaker for some of these attacks in the end game. You need that queen. The healers do go off onto the Valks, but still that's not as effective as a queen with the healers on her, because she's able to snipe defenses more effectively, where the Valks just kind of all run around a little bit brainless. So anyway, the healers also get in range of the air defense, which is another thing that's going to be an issue. Has a few balloons, and he actually deployed a few hogs, so he had some stuff for the back end of this base, and I think he would have crushed it pretty easily had everything gone in at the same time, had the Valks moved in before the queen was targeted by the multi-inferno. But unfortunately, he just kind of moved too slowly. We'll go ahead and fast forward to the end here, and I think another problem was he had to wait for a while, because the right side of the base at 3 o'clock, that part of the funnel couldn't be created for a while because the Valks and the king had to beat through that second layer of the wall. So we'll take a look at, I probably shouldn't have gone out, but whatever. We'll take a look at the next attack and see what that attacker did. So Jackson attacks this base with a mass bowler composition, and you'll see that it just doesn't quite, the troops just don't quite go where they need to go, and that's part of the problem. He tried to wall breaker the queen in. You'll see this on a few different attacks, that the queen can be difficult to get into that corner compartment, because the army camp is so big that once it goes down, there's not a whole lot pulling the queen in, because everything else is pretty far back into that compartment. So the queen doesn't go into that first compartment to start. You can see he also dropped down the bowlers and some wall breakers, so he was trying to create the funnel by entering each compartment, but the bowlers were really difficult to funnel in as well, so neither the queen or the bowlers, actually they do end up going back into that compartment, but the queen didn't, so the left part of the funnel isn't created. The top is going to be kind of created. They're not going to take out all the buildings, but they'll get some of them. Here comes the main force of bowlers. The healers luckily kind of go off onto the bowlers, and right here has the freeze, which pretty good placement. It'll allow those bowlers to get healed back up for a little while, but the main problem is even if the bowlers approach the core like they do right there, they don't really go into it. They just kind of walk around, and the few that did go into it got roasted pretty bad. The main or not the main group, but the big group of bowlers that has like 5 or 6 is still kind of making their way through the outskirts of the base. So really nothing goes in any kind of force, and because this core has so much high value defenses, you really have to go in strong, and the bowlers just don't quite do that as well. They don't stay in the big group as well as they should in a base that's this spread out. So Valks are typically going to be the go-to. They're a lot easier to predict the pathing. I know that's kind of crazy to say that Valks are easy to predict the pathing, but compared to bowlers, I actually think that's true, because you can kind of guess where a Valk is going to go. With a bowler, it's a little bit more difficult. So let's take a look at the next attack and see what the plan was. Okay, guess who? It's Bisectatron taking on this next base, and you can see he has another similar army to the first attacker. He goes ahead and drops down the minions on the dark elixir or not the dark spell factory, that is, to try to get the funnel, or the queen. I can't even talk tonight again. To try to get the queen to funnel into that top compartment. The wall breakers are too late though, and that cannon goes down a split second early. The queen, instead of targeting the archer tower, gets really weird and targets the wizard tower. For some reason, that was kind of an interesting little move she made, because it wasn't the closest building, and because she just thrust herself into range of all that point defense, he had to drop that rage, which probably was going to be intended for the Valks, for the core, to help them take that out. But because of the mix-up with the queen, now she had to use the rage, plus she's going to go on that wall, so the rage is going to wear off. At this point, he's kind of improvising. This wasn't the plan, I don't think. But he's going to drop down his golem and the wizard on the bottom here, just kind of in a panic. The queen goes down, so there's pretty much no chance of a funnel at this point. Everything just kind of being spammed in. That jump spell that was supposed to just be for the king and the golem and a few Valks for the funnel ends up being used on all the Valks, and the CC troops are still up. Nothing can even target air troops that's left up for his troops, so it's pretty much GG at this point, and his troops will just run around for a little while before they go down. So a nice try to Bisectatron. I don't think that was the plan was okay, but just as soon as the queen walk fell apart, everything kind of fell apart. So keep your head up, dude. It gets better. But let's take a look at, I don't know why I backed out again. Let's take a look at the last attack that got the 3-star, and a creative way to do it. Something that I actually haven't seen on this base. It's pretty similar to most of the plans that I've tried and that other people have tried, but it's a little bit of a variation that makes it a lot easier to plan out and to deploy your troops. So let's take a look at that attack. Okay, so the 3-star goes to Black Ice, and you can notice he has a lot more Valks trained up than anyone else did. Goes ahead and wall breakers in at the beginning there, drops down a few, I think, to test, and it requires him bringing a few extra wall breakers, but he makes sure it's wide open before he deploys a single troop. Takes up a little more troop space, but definitely worth it. And I like how he used the bowlers behind the king, because the bowlers can reach the second layer of buildings without having to actually go through that wall, so they can create the funnel without having to advance. The king actually does beat his way through the wall, and then he drops down the queen delayed. That way he doesn't even need to lure out the CC troops, because the other part of the kill squad accomplishes that. So a little bit gutsy to let his king go down so early, but honestly, the king isn't that necessary to take out the core or for cleanup at the end, so the king is expendable in that sense. Drops down the rage on the queen and the healers, goes ahead and does a double poison, so the CC troops won't be much of a threat. And you can see right here the funnel has already been created. Not the best funnel, but it's functional, and the deployment is so much easier. Drops in all 20 of his Valks. The jump spell's down, has the rage, and doesn't even use a freeze because they move through so fast that the freeze would have just been wasted, because the Infernos go down well before the freeze would even have worn off. So not even needed. You can see how quickly the Valks move through the base. They could probably take out most of the base on their own, but as usual, the queen is going to be needed to take out kind of the shell of the base, or at least most of it, because the Valks get caught on walls pretty quickly and start to go down. So the queen finally beats her way through. Actually a good thing that she got stuck on the wall for a while, because it allowed everything to go down. So by the time she emerges, the base is very manageable. Has the ability as well in case he needs it, and it's true that the queen and her healers will probably trigger a number of seeking air mines as they move through the base, because they're bound to be somewhere by those air defenses, but especially with the queen's ability, it's not going to be that much of an issue. And you can see that, yeah, a few traps hit the healers, but by this point, Valks are tanking. The queen's at full health anyway. She can afford to take some damage before she even gets low on health, and has the ability as well when he needs it. So pretty much everything has gone down, but the queen is still up with that wizard, and they'll take out the last few buildings. Awesome attack to Black Ice. You can see he did a few important things. First, he went ahead and wall breakered things open before he actually dropped the corresponding troops. Makes it easier, and that's one thing I could have done because the wall breakers were so late that my queen actually didn't enter the compartment like she would have if I wall breakered in earlier. So that's one thing. Also, the king to tank for the bowlers is effective because the bowlers can reach deeper into the base and create the funnel without having to actually get into that next layer of the base. And finally, he used the king and the bowlers before the queen. That way the queen was a little easier to manage. You didn't have to go back and forth trying to do multiple things at once. And that way you can deploy your main group of Valks right after the queen does her job. So you know the queen will be protected as she gets stuck on the wall. The Valks clear out the entire core of the base. Doesn't even need a freeze because there's so many of them. And the queen, when she emerges from her little pod in the corner, the base is ripe for cleanup. So anyway, hope you guys liked the video, and this will be the last time you probably see this base on my channel, at least for the foreseeable future. So make sure that you're ready for when you see this base in war, for those of you Town Hall 10s out there, and I'm sure you guys will crush it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, Sectatron out.